All right, I know I left you at a cliffhanger last time. I told you we were going to make a virtual machine, and we did, but we didn't put an operating system on it. And just like a physical machine, a virtual machine is not very useful without an operating system on it. So let's remedy that right now. First of all, notice here I am with my virtual machine that I just made, Windows XP Professional. I can power it on and I can edit its settings. Here's the hardware that we've already configured a little bit, mostly the memory and the hard drive you'll probably recognize. I'm going to start by coming up here to the VM and go to settings. And this is the same as if I click on the settings back here. This is just, this option is always here, so this is what I'm going to use. And we need a way to install the operating system, right? So normally we would have a Windows CD and we would put that in and we would boot the computer and it would recognize that it's got the CD there. And then we would just walk through the process of installing the operating system. Now in this case, first of all, my physical machine doesn't even have a CD drive. They're just not as common as they used to be anymore. My virtual machine definitely doesn't have a real CD drive, but it does have a fake CD drive. And I'm going to talk about that for a second here. If I click on this, I get two different options. If I have an actual physical CD drive on my computer, which I don't, I could expand this list and I could get access to all of the CD and DVD and other optical drives. Since I don't, I'm going to use what's called an ISO image. And I don't even know what ISO stands for in this case, but it's a file that's kind of like a zip file, except it's got all the information in it to be able to pretend to be a CD or DVD. So sometimes installers have particular needs, or they have security and other things where they maybe have information written in between tracks, or maybe they care that certain information comes from a certain place on the CD. An ISO can actually emulate those things. So we don't have to know how it works. We just have to have the ISO file and it will work. And I have an ISO file for Windows XP, so I'm just going to put that on here. And there it is. So without further ado, I'm going to say OK. I'm going to go ahead and power the machine on. And just like normal, if I had put a CD into a physical machine, it would recognize it. In this case, same thing. It's going to recognize that it's got an operating system disk there. And it recognizes much faster because the CD doesn't actually have to spin up, which is pretty awesome. Now, if you just tried turning on your VM for the first time, and it popped up with some error window that said something about Intel VT technology is disabled or something like that. That's because there is, inside of your host machine processor, there's a feature that lets us run virtualization technology efficiently. And so that might be called something different depending on what manufacturer processor you have. But if that's what came up, you'll need to go into, when your computer boots and says press F1 for configuration utility or push delete to enter setup or something like that, you'll have to go into that. And that's, some people call it the BIOS or the CMOS configuration utility, but somewhere in there you should be able to find a virtualization technology option. Just turn that on and you shouldn't have any problems. All modern processors have this technology, and it's frequently just not enabled by default. So you'll have to do that once, and then you'll never have to look at it again. Okay, it finished loading, and now it's asking me what to do with all this unpartitioned space. Well, first I'm going to click into the virtual machine. My mouse is going to go away. Then I'm going to create a partition, because I don't have a partition right now. So I'll press C to create partition. And yes, make it the whole size. I'll hit enter. Now we have a partition. It's the C partition. Probably looks very familiar. That's what the operating system seems like it's almost always installed on. And if I hit enter right now, it will start installing. So I'll click on that. Now it is going to ask me how I want to format my partition. And I've got two options, quick and normal. And the difference here is fairly simple. The full format option will search for bad sectors, and the quick format option skips that part. And since we have a virtual disk, this isn't a real hard drive, it's not going to have bad sectors, so we don't really need to worry about that. Is the quick option actually any faster when we're talking about a virtual disk? I don't know, but I click on quick anyway because why not? That's all we really need to do. I skipped the boring stuff for you, so now we We've restarted a few times. It's all installed, and now it's going to start asking me questions. But first it says it's going to adjust the screen resolution. I say okay, and it's going to flicker whatever. I can read the text. I'll say okay. Ooh. State of the art right here. Thank goodness, question mark. Blah, blah, blah. I am not going to turn any of this on. I do not want automatic updates or antivirus. I like that music though. And this is not a computer that needs to be connected to the internet, so I'm actually just going to skip that. No, not going to register. Machine automation services user. Let's say next. Fantastic. That's a good sound. And here we are. Now the next question is, hey John, this thing is really small. How do I make it look good? First, I'm going to tell VMware that I finished installing this because the operating system is installed now. Next, I'm going to click on this Enter Full Screen Mode button. Now this would normally work, but since we just installed the operating system, there's one more step we need to take. That's installing a piece of software called VMware Tools. And VMware Tools really lets this virtual machine and the host kind of operate together a little more smoothly. So keyboard and mouse will be smoother, and this picture will actually stretch to fill the whole screen. So I'm going to come back up here. Notice that that bar automatically disappears, kind of like a remote desktop session. And I'm going to go to under the VM tab. I've got an install VMware Tools. So click on that. It's going to load up a CD. I'm going to say yes. Just walk through the wizard. Typical is fine. And look at that, the screen's full size again. We're all done installing this. And yes, we will restart. And there you have a virtual machine.